Well, buckle up, folks, because the historic criminal indictment of the former president, it was just the beginning. On Tuesday, surrounded by a ramped-up police security presence in Lower Manhattan, former President Donald Trump will be arraigned on what a court administration official tells us is about 30 counts related to document fraud. Now, that's when Trump and the rest of us will find out exactly what the charges are after a months-long investigation led by District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Now, the case centers around alleged hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election. So what's next? Well, a lengthy trial where Trump's former attorney and a key witness in the investigation, Michael Cohen, is expected to testify. But Cohen has been plagued with credibility issues after pleading guilty in 2018, partly to campaign finance violations covered in this very case. But before District Attorney Bragg pursued this historic indictment, he had a predecessor, former Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance, who was investigating these payments as well. Vance met with Cohen at least 8 times before stepping down at the end of 2021. Here's what the former district attorney told my colleague Jen Psaki about whether he'd be comfortable bringing Cohen in front of a jury.
Well, the issue is not whether I'd be comfortable. The issue is whether the office today is going to be comfortable, and it appears that they absolutely are. As I've said, I think earlier today, obviously Mr. Cohen as a witness will be attacked, cross-examined on his prior statements, his prior guilty plea. But that doesn't mean Mr. Cohen is not a witness who can't be believed. I've tried many cases with witnesses with lengthy criminal records. And as long as there is corroborative evidence to support what he says, then juries, as they will be instructed by the court, are absolutely free to believe a witness, whether he or she has a criminal record or any other, any other problem.
Here to respond is the attorney for Michael Cohen, Lanny Davis. Good to see you, Mr. Davis. You heard the former district attorney's comments just now. Would you like to respond?
Yes, I know Mr. Vance, have a great deal of respect for him, and he's right on about even people who are convicted murderers in organized crime prosecutions are the only witness against a mob boss will be somebody who probably has killed people. So, but I don't think that's the real answer about Michael Cohen's credibility. Let me give you 2 facts that are the best answer. The first is that Michael Cohen said before an audience of millions in public, what I did for Donald Trump and dirty deeds for 10 years, I lied, I cheated, I did everything dirty for him. And then I decided on July 2nd, 2018, to own what I did. I'm ashamed of myself. And now I want to speak truth to power and put my family and my country first. That's very rare where a witness who has a lot of flaws has owned all that he has done and says, from this point on, I'm going to cooperate with authorities. So 7 congressional committees, grand jury testimony
Mr.
without
Davis,
taking the 5th Amendment.
What I hear you
this is the real answer to credibility.
What I hear you giving, that's what I was going to say, what I hear you giving is a forceful defense of Mr. Cohen's credibility. So do you think at this point it is unfounded for folks to question his credibility?
No, certainly not. He's the one harshest on himself, Simone. He said, I'm ashamed of myself. I apologize. I'm not going to defend myself for what I did, dirty deeds for 10 years. He said that in front of tens of millions of people on live television. So there's no denying that he was a liar and a cheat and did a lot of terrible things in the name of, at the instruction of Donald Trump, according to federal prosecutors. And that includes the hush money payment. The federal prosecutors said Donald Trump directed him to do that. Now, if he went to jail for doing that, which was a terrible crime that they themselves described not as a campaign finance violation that Mike Pence hypocritically diminishes, the federal prosecutors have said this is a crime that imperils our democracy. So when the Republicans are trying to politicize this by saying this is a political trial, you know who they're arguing with, Simone? Federal prosecutors in the Trump administration said this crime of hush money is a serious crime that imperils our democcy. So every time you hear Mike Pence
I will know, Mr. Davis, that this is not a federal case at this point. I don't disagree with your assertion.
No, it's the same crime. Excuse me. Excuse me for interrupting you, Simone. It's exactly the same crime with the same facts. One's a federal crime, the other is a state crime, and that's an issue they'll tell you about when the indictment is unsealed. But it's the same facts. And the federal prosecutor said this crime, whether it's state or federal, impairs our democracy if you pay somebody not to disclose information that the American people are entitled to know.
So has Mr. Cohen then been asked to corroborate evidence of any additional payments or potential crimes that were not previously public knowledge?
Yes. And there is a second crime that he pled guilty to. And that is a crime that involved the National Enquirer paying Karen McDougal $150,000. Mr. Pecker received immunity by admitting he did that in return for Donald Trump's commitment to repay that money. Michael Cohen pled guilty to that crime because he did the paperwork. So he was charged by the Southern District prosecutors for the two crimes. And again, I just want to reiterate, these are serious crimes. They're not just campaign finance violations. It's called hush money to deprive the American people, whether it's Karen McDougal and Donald Trump directly with Mr. Pecker. And Michael did the paperwork. But they are two crimes that, so far as I know, at least one will be charged. The Karen McDougal crime that Michael pled guilty to and went to jail in part for. We don't know whether that will be a crime separately charged in the indictment.
All right. Lanny Davis, ladies and gentlemen, with a forceful and fiery defense of his client. We will wait to see what these charges are on Tuesday. I am joined now by Congressman Benny Thompson. He's a Democrat from Mississippi. Congressman Thompson was the chair of the January 6th Select Committee, and he's currently the ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee. Chairman Thompson, look, Congressman, an overwhelming number of Republican elected officials in this country, they really seem to be arguing that the simple act of declaring one's candidacy for president actually excludes that person from being held accountable by the criminal justice system. What is your response to that?
Very simple, Simone. No one is above the law. Not even someone running for president of the United States. The real danger is I'm hearing the same kind of rhetoric that created January 6th right now with the impending indictment of Donald Trump. I'm hearing Lindsey Graham say we should break windows, hit cops in the face. I'm hearing Margaret Taylor Greene talk about being in New York on Tuesday to rally the troops against this injustice. All that kind of rhetoric created what occurred on January 6th. And for some strange reason, the Republicans in Congress don't get it. We had over 140 law enforcement individuals hurt. We had 5 people who lost their lives. This kind of language in this situation is very, very dangerous because there are some people out here who take them at their word.
So you Congressman, then, it is now reported that Donald Trump plans to address his supporters Tuesday evening. I don't know who will be covering the address live, what network, but he does plan to address his supporters. Does that rhetoric concern you? Are you concerned that that particular speech could, in fact, incite violence?
Well, there's no question about it. He's doing it. He's fundraising off it. My understanding is he's raised over $4 million since the word was released about the upcoming indictment. But the real concern, Simone, is our separation of powers is being tested in this moment simply because we are now, as members of Congress, Republican members, are now going after a state official who's doing his official duties.
Congressman, along those lines, I want to play actually some sound for you. This is from Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan. He and, as you just alluded to, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, they are using their investigative power, one could argue, to intimidate Alvin Bragg and to investigate his investigation. This is what Jim Jordan said this morning.
Well, overall, it's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, Mr. Bragg has conceded that he used federal funds. We know that this grew out of the federal, the special counsel investigation, which is federal statute, and most importantly, involves a federal election. I mean, here we are, as you indicated, we're 4 months away from the first debate in the primaries for the election to the most important office we have, President of the United States. And so it is ridiculous.
Do you think Congressman Jim Jordan's argument holds weight there? He's saying it was a federal he's using federal dollars. That is what gives his committee the license to investigate. Your response?
Well, my response is he's obstructing justice by interfering with the lawful duties of an elected state official. Clearly, he's doing it at the behest of Donald Trump. He's trying to create the illusion that what this district attorney is doing is not in his purview as district attorney. And that's crazy. If this became the standard with the hundreds of district attorneys we have in the country, now we've relegated ourselves to telling them what they should and should not do. The grand jury process is a process that's sacred. It's a process that's privatized in terms of the information. And so we have to respect that process. And so for my colleagues to now assume that a district attorney can't do their job simply because a former president is the person potentially tasked with violating the law, he's not above the law.
A former Republican president at that, sir.